World Wide Web, where we remind you to set your clocks back on Sunday, back to when the Broncos were good. I'm Colin Daniels, and this is your host, John Reedy.
That's quite a difference from how we usually do it, isn't it?
It's a little more subdued, but I think the whole thing is a little bit more subdued.
Yes, it is.
You know, there's really something to getting everyone in the studio, and this is really our first foray into trying to do it over the World Wide Web. I guess we've tried it before.
Yeah, we've done it with streaming the show while we've done it, but now we decided, hey, we're not going to get out of the house on a Friday night to go do it, so we might as well sit in the comfort of our own spaces and do a show. So welcome everyone. It's good to have everybody back, and we'll try to hit on some of the hot topics. Although I've got to see, the difference is that now I have a cat walking in front of the screen, which I don't usually have that at the studio. You know what I mean?
No, usually all the pussy's waiting downstairs.
Yeah, that's right. So welcome everyone. We haven't been broadcasting for a while, but Colin was in Europe, and like Colin said, it's been kind of hard to get everybody together. But
can you tell, John, by my hat that I've been in Europe?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a
I'm now a much more European Colin.
Are you?
Yes.
What changed about you after being there? Like, what now do you?
Well, I'm definitely a lot more racist. Way more, and narcissistic. Way more narcissistic, and no, it was cool. It was cool to get away we were out there 20 days.
Yeah. Wow. It was a while. Sounds like fun. You didn't miss much other than the Avalanche season started, and there's been no way to watch them since then. And I think you know a little bit about that. I think you've had some trials and tribulations for that. Now, myself, let's just say I've been able to watch them due to different various means that I won't go into. I think everybody's kind of found ways to do that. But yeah, if I haven't missed many games, let's put it that way. So, but while this rages on, the newest development today was that DirecTV has now gotten back on the altitude bandwagon. Maybe you can fill people in a little bit more of the drama.
Well, what I find most interesting about DirecTV being the first domino to fall is that they are owned by AT&T, who also owns AT&T Sportsnet. Mm-hmm. So part of the speculation throughout the whole thing was that AT&T Sportsnet was vying for the broadcast rights for the Avalanche and the Nuggets, and they would be able to use this situation and collusion with the other carriers to put the screws to altitude and try to convince them that they're going to put them under, they're going to bury them and take those properties for themselves. On the other hand, there's been widespread reporting that AT&T is interested in shedding its own regional sports networks. So the fact that was the first domino to fall makes me speculate to a degree that the Altitude Network may be in pursuit of the Rockies broadcast, which would make a ton of sense to have that year-round programming. But it is an encouraging sign. And it's interesting because as of yesterday morning, it was beginning to look as though we might go the entire season without seeing either the Avalanche or the Nuggets on TV. And that could potentially lead to the doom of Altitude as an entity. And at least the fact that first domino has fallen means that Altitude TV and all of the wonderful people that we know who work for Altitude TV are safe, that it's still a viable product, and that none of those people are going to lose their jobs. And one would have to assume that now that first domino has fallen, the pressure will be on the other carriers to bring it back. So I would expect that to happen quickly. And I hope it does, because I went through quite a bit of a trial and tribulation, as you mentioned. On Monday, dropped Comcast because I figured if I couldn't watch live sports, there was no reason to have cable. And so I signed up for the streaming service I felt would give me the best NFL coverage, and that was PlayStation Vue. And I signed up for PlayStation Vue on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, Sony announced PlayStation View was no longer a thing.
Perfect.
And it was going to be canceled by January 1st. So I crawled back, John.
You went to back
on
to
my
Comcast?
hands and knees.
Oh no!
I crawled back to Comcast.
Oh my God!
I know. I feel like such a fucking pussy. I got the guy on the phone yesterday. I negotiated a new deal. I was like most subscribers. I was paying about $230 a month, and I dropped the home phone, dropped a few channels, got the bill down to $154. But no sooner did I make a 1-year commitment to stick with Comcast, who I've been with for 18 years, mind you. No sooner do I make that commitment than I find out that DirecTV now has Altitude Sports and Entertainment. So I'm crying. I'm crying in my beer, and I'm really hoping they get something done with the other carriers.
Yeah, I hope so too, because it is kind of a pain in the ass to sit and, I mean, there's people who are like hooking up laptops with HDMI cables, things like that. But it still is nice just to be able to turn on the TV and watch the games. There's
now, let me ask you this though: with the streams that you have been watching, have you encountered lags and dropouts and kind of problems like that? Because I know I did watching the Nuggets in the critical final minute against Dallas. It was breaking up, crackling up, pausing. It was kind of like when we record a podcast.
I was gonna say, like, my view of you right now is very laggy. Like you're like not even synced up with what you're saying. I can hear you fine, but you're like real pixelated. It might just be my computer. But no, I didn't experience that. Once in a while it would crash, but it was pretty good. And good picture and everything. And it was probably as choppy and jumpy as Altitude usually is. You know how choppy it is. That's how it looked to me, and it was fine. It's just, you know, who knows what that is, and you never know if like the FBI is going to come knocking at your door and be like, "Why have you been watching illegal streams from Europe of your favorite team?" So it's just nicer to be able to just turn the TV on, but it does give someone kind of like maybe an outlet to say, well, maybe I should explore something else. Now you did, and you came right back. So I think that, do you think they have your picture up somewhere at Comcast and they're like, look at this sucker? Something like that.
You know, a lot of people complain about Comcast and they think Comcast is evil. And you hear a lot of complaints about their customer service. I've been with them for 18 years because I've never had anything really but good experiences with them. Like when the internet goes down or the cable box isn't working correctly, I've always had great luck with them hacking in or whatever they have to do and getting things done. I've always had friendly voices on the other end of the phone. So I had only one reason to leave cable, and that was that I couldn't justify the bill anymore without the live sports that I want to watch. So I'm very hopeful that they bring it on back. Interestingly, just yesterday, I was interviewed by a woman at the Wall Street Journal, who I found out through Twitter. Wall Street Journal was doing a story on the Altitude fight.
Yeah.
And now I don't know if that story will ever run since they've made a deal with DirecTV.
Yeah, but Comcast is the bigger deal in town here. So I think once that happens, that might be the tipping point. But as far as I know, it's not going to happen yet. But anyway, I mean, there's an Avalanche game on right now. If I were to stream it, I mean, I was already pushing my limit that I can get for a month, so I didn't even watch anything last couple nights. So it's just, like I said, it's kind of a hassle. It's kind of ridiculous that they haven't put these two teams that are, you know, supposed to be doing so well on TV, and I think that's quite a failure by Kroenke Sports. But speaking of that, the teams are supposed to be doing so well. Nuggets, you know, seem to have kind of stumbled a little bit. The Avalanche have a lot of injuries. It's you know, it just, they're going to be good teams. They're going to be fun to watch. I imagine it'll be on soon, but it just seems kind of odd they're not on.
Well, and the thing that bums me out about it, John, is that yes, I think they're going to be good teams, and yes, the Nuggets have looked like absolute crap, and we can talk about that last couple games, but it's not the loyal fans like you are of the Avs and I am of the Nuggets who are concerned. The concern is the transplants here in Denver who are not able to easily view the games and therefore get swept up into the fun of the whole thing, because that's what you want. You want these people who are moving here from other places to become fans of the local teams, and if they're not televised, that's nearly impossible.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully it gets resolved soon. Another thing that got resolved is the Broncos are moving on from Joe Flacco. I think they're moving on because he's gone on IR. Nobody knows if he was really hurt or not, but it's pretty much done. It's Flacco's done as far as we know, and they had some guy I've never heard of before playing quarterback this week. Like literally, I'd never.
I think his name's Byron Allen, and I loved him on Real People when we were younger.
Byron Allen was a delight. No, they said like I watched preseason football, Colin, and I don't recall this guy at all. Like, did he not play in the preseason? Like, no one can answer this for me. I don't think anyone knows who he is.
I don't think anyone knows who he is either. And then they brought this Rippin fella in from the practice squad. Now I do remember
he was playing in the preseason.
Yeah, I remember him. But
so this is a huge mess, and they are horrible. And they're just going to get even more horrible. They're going to get. There's no way they're going to win this weekend, I would think. But it just seems like more and more they're just going down the drain. The ownership situation has obviously impacted this whole thing, and I think that they need to hurry up and sell the team, which I know you're a big proponent of.
Yeah, I think that's really step one, and I don't think there are a lot of people viewing it that way, but I don't know when we're ever going to see any movement on that. And it's really depressing because there's not a member of the Bolin family who I trust to manage a professional sports franchise. Not one. And I don't care what classes Brittany, who dots the I in her name with a heart, is taking. I don't care who's filled what position with the league for however long. They're just a bunch of inheritors, and I don't think anybody has the competency, certainly not the gravitas to be the owner of the Denver Broncos. So that's the first thing that's got to change. And then you've got to ask yourself about the great John Elway, the face of this franchise. A lot of people want to see him gone. I don't want to see him gone. I want to see him no longer the general manager of the team. But at least until the team has new ownership, you have to have John Elway there to be the face of the franchise. Otherwise, it's the trust who's the face of the franchise right now. Joe Ellis and the trust, and that's no good.
Wouldn't it make more sense to have John Elway as the Joe Ellis figure and get rid of Joe Ellis and have John Elway kind of in that regard? I know he's like kind of acting as the owner, Joe Ellis, but I think Elway could be the figurehead and maybe kind of weigh in on, kind of the direction it needs to go, but have an actual GM handling these things. I just think Joe Ellis needs to get out. I don't think he's doing anything. I think he's doing more harm than good. I agree with you on Elway. I think Elway should stick around just because of who he is, the good that he has done, but maybe some of it taken out of his hands.
And not in a decision-making capacity. I want to see John Elway be the Queen of England of the Denver Broncos. Just very much a celebrated figure, a celebratory figure, a spokesperson for the team. Somebody who speaks on behalf of ownership, and you see John Elway out there and he talks to the media and he hosts charity golf tournaments and that kind of thing. But as far as the Joe Ellis role is concerned, Joe Ellis has decisions to make. The problem is he won't make them. Pat entrusted him to make the decision which of Pat's children, if any, should take over the team. Mm-hmm. And if none of them are capable, that it should be sold. Now, he hasn't been gone for a year yet. But once Pat Bolin has been gone for a year or more, I, as a fan, am going to expect Joe Ellis to set those things in motion, make a decision. The problem is he draws a massive salary from the team, and he's given the opportunity to benefit himself only so long as he remains in the role that he's in now. And so he has really a disincentive to get off his ass and make a call.
Yeah, and I think that's the chief problem. But I just don't see any of these Bolin kids. I put up Blood of the City because obviously he'd make for a really entertaining owner. Um, but I
He'd
don't
be the
think
most Pat-like of any of them.
maybe, yeah. But I don't think any of these guys. I mean, what are they going to do? I don't. I mean, they're just gonna they're gonna do like what Meghan McCain does and be like, well, my father cared about players, and they're just gonna spin their wheels. They're not gonna do anything. Need somebody that has some experience and knows exactly what's wrong to come in and take care of business. But I just don't know if that's going to be one of those kids or not. But obviously they're really bad. Like they're super bad, and like everyone keeps saying, well, they're not as bad as their record shows. And it's like, yeah, they're pretty
Yeah,
bad.
they're just as bad as their record shows,
Yeah,
if
they're
not slightly
terrible.
worse. They're one of the 5 worst franchises in in the NFL. And what's really discouraging is that that's right now. They're only going to continue to get worse.
Well, yeah, they are going to get worse. It's not going to end there. And you think about it, like the Redskins are just a terrible organization. The guy that he just revealed yesterday that he had cancer for 6 years, and the Redskins didn't do anything about it, and he didn't think it was anything because they didn't tell him. Like that's how bad they are. And the Broncos aren't that bad, but it will keep getting worse because you remember it was the place where no matter what was going on with the team, people wanted to come to the team because they knew that the winning tradition. They knew they had great facilities. And now it's kind of like, well, why do I want to go to this place that seems to kind of be in disarray? And that's what they need to do before anything else is going to change, because they're not going to get anybody to come here. I have a theory that the reason why they don't fully give Philip Lindsay a full share of the running back duties is because they don't want to pay him. They don't want to pay him because they know they can get him cheap, and they think, well, if this guy does too well, then we're going to have to pay him, because once he hits free agency, the guy's going to get paid, right? I mean, he's good. So I don't know if it's just a plan by them. Anyway, what I'm getting at is this is just kind of their thing. I think they're kind of the way they've operated over the last couple of years, and I don't get it because that's not generally how Bolin acted. So it seems like they're kind of going against what he has always done or had always did.
Here's the difference. Pat Bolin was a swinging dick, and he was the owner of the team. Yes. The buck stopped there, and you don't have anyone in that position now where the buck stops. You just don't. You don't have a swinging dick who can say, we're losing fans, people aren't showing up to games, we're not winning, we're going to fire Mike Shanahan. That takes fucking huge balls to fire Mike Shanahan, and may or may not have been the right decision at the time. I don't know. What I do know is that Pat Bolin had the gravitas to do that, and none of these people do.
Yeah, that was, whether good or for bad, maybe you could debate that, but I think at least he could make that decision and thought this is the direction to go. I mean, ultimately,
we need a billionaire. We need somebody who's run a huge company. And quick before Elizabeth Warren takes all their money. These people, somebody's got to buy the Broncos before Elizabeth Warren is president.
That's right. Before they get taxed into oblivion.
That's right.
Well, I don't want Stan Kroenke. Stan Kroenke already owns the Rams, but I don't want someone like that, because he's obviously watched this altitude thing so badly that I want somebody that a little more hungry, a little more wants to really make an impact with owning an NFL franchise.
Well, I think Kroenke definitely botched it by allowing all 3 contracts to expire at the exact same time. But It remains to be seen whether he botched it, because we don't know how much. I mean, we don't know what the negotiations were with DirecTV. I mean, he may or may not have botched it. He may have stood his ground to the point where he's making every bit as much money as he was before, and then some. And if they were to wind up with a year-round network by adding the Colorado Rockies, then he would have botched nothing.
That is true, and that would be awesome, because it would be great to be able to watch them all in one place. I know,
the production value would go up. It would have to.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when you watch a Rockies game that's broadcast by ESPN, and then you watch a Rockies game again the following day on Zombie Root Sports, the difference in the production quality is night and day. The sound is better. The camera angles are better. The colors are more lush. and the commentary is far, far better.
Well, what are the odds they would get rid of the current broadcasting crew? You know they wouldn't. They'd probably keep Drew Goodman around just because
Oh, of course.
he's a longtime pro. Maybe they'd get rid of some of the other jokers. See, now I'm getting excited about it because there's nothing. That's the thing. The baseball season ends and there was all this stuff about the Rockies and what they're not going to do and the same bullshit that they're always talking about how they're not going to get any big name free agents. That's fine, I get that, but it's just depressing. So this would be a nice thing to hear if that was actually going to happen. Maybe watching the games would be a pleasure and not the usual pain that it is.
Well, I think the production value would go up. And one of the things that makes Altitude special and not like any other regional sports network that I'm aware of is that the network does seem to have a deep passion for the region, for the fans of Denver, for the teams, and they go above and beyond. I'll use the example of the Doug Moe documentary that they made. Julie Browman and Vic Lombardi put a ton of work into probably about 2 years ago. That was not done for profit. That, far from it. That's something they spent a lot of time and money doing because
Sure.
they were excited about it and they had energy and they care about the fans. And that's why I love Altitude Sports, and I think they'd bring a lot to the Rockies broadcast. So yeah, I mean, I'd completely pull that idea out of my ass that could happen, but there is a lot of consolidation in that industry, so why not?
Switching gears a little bit. So what's up with Vic Lombardi? Old man Lombardi is yelling at you the other night because you were rightfully complaining about this ridiculous standoff with the cable networks, and he got all pissy with you, and I was like, look, I understand they're upset. They're not able to they're broadcasting. They're just not actually going out to households in Denver. But he was I thought, now granted, most people yelling at you are probably justified, but it seemed like he was going a little bit overboard with yelling at you. What can you fill me in on what happened there?
Well, and yeah. I don't actually remember exactly what triggered the conversation, but yeah, he was like, uh, you don't expect us to lose money, do you? I mean, aren't you in business? I said, yeah, I'm in business, and if we're going to go that way, I wouldn't have let my contracts with 3 major suppliers end at the exact same time. So what the hell is going on there? I mean, if you guys are such a brilliant business, and I think a take that a lot of people have had on this is, wait a minute. You guys are the little guys. Aren't you owned by the Cronkies? Doesn't Josh Kroenke, isn't he married to a Walmart heir?
Yeah.
I mean, now you're talking about big business trying to take down the small business. What the fuck do you think Walmart does? You go into a town and take down every small business in your path. So stop trying to act like the little guy. I think that sentiment didn't sit well with Vic, and it didn't sit well with Mark Mosier either. But I definitely have mended fences with those guys. But I understand how emotional they are. I mean, if you consider the fact that they have not changed the broadcast that they're working hard to put on a nightly basis just because nobody's watching it. So they're basically screaming at a cloud, and you can see it if you're in Cheyenne or in Eastern Colorado, but people in the core market can't see it. So it's got to be frustrating for them. And I don't blame them for being emotional. And one thing that shines through all of that is these are company people. One thing Altitude has definitely done is build a lot of loyalty within their ranks.
And that's fine. I get it. The thing with Kyle Keefe had the kind of emotional thing about getting back on DirecTV. He said his wife told him not to post it, which like probably a good idea. But it was he was obviously very moved by it that he could get back because those guys enjoy what they do and they do a great job. And it's too bad they're not on, but it's not their fault. They're just the people on the TV. It's their boss's fault, who have obviously fed them a steady diet of, oh, we're the ones being persecuted here. So they're gonna say that because that's just what they have to do. I think they care about what they do, and that's where it comes in, because that's where their bosses can manipulate them and say, oh, look, you really gotta make sure to tell people to get Comcast to step up to the plate. And they want to be on just as much as anybody. So I get it. It's just I think they're being manipulated just as much as anyone else.
Sure. And the thing that's disingenuous, and I've pointed this out, and it did anger people over there. This "don't block my Avalanche" shit. That's not what's happening. Comcast and DirecTV and Dish Network weren't saying we refuse to air your sports. That's not what happened.
No.
Altitude said, "Fuck you. We're not sending you our stream no more until you come to terms with us." So it wasn't being fucking blocked. It was being withheld. And the dishonesty of that marketing campaign kind of drove me crazy.
Sure. Yeah. That's generally how it's going to go. But anyway, I don't know. I think the Avs are playing now. I just haven't been able to, to check any scores on it, or they're playing at 8. I don't know when the hell they're playing.
They're playing right now.
They're playing.
And they're fucking good. The Avalanche are really legit good. That's exciting.
They are good. It's great. And they got a great fan base, and everyone's doing a great job covering them while they're not on TV. So it helps. But it's just weird. I wish we could trade the Broncos with them. I don't watch the Broncos anymore. I haven't watched them in weeks because I watch Red Zone, and then they're barely on Red Zone. So they weren't on Red Zone for like the first 15 minutes of Red Zone being on last week when they were on. I think they're on 11. They weren't even on there, and I was just like, they're that bad, huh? Like,
when they're on, it's Brandon McManus time.
Yeah. So anyway, while we're talking about that, we haven't had much fantasy the podcast or anything lately. So let me ask you about your fantasy season. What's going good for you? What's not? What's looking good this week, if you will?
NFL's just been dismal for me, and it's been bad. After 8 weeks, I'm 4-4 in all 4 leagues. So
all of them.
So I'm in 4 leagues. I'm 4-4 in all of them. So it could go either way. But I'm enjoying hockey this year, although the scoring system is really bizarre.
Well, it's points in our league. We switched it to points. It's like head-to-head points, more like fantasy football is, So
that's a little bit strange because it was categories as recently as last year.
It was, and then we changed it.
I'm playing you this week.
Yes, you are.
I'm also playing you this week in football.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, in one of the leagues, I think in Legal Weed Melvin.
Okay, so right now I'm up 225 to 191. So that's
hockey.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good for me. So I'm happy about that.
You're looking good, but I've got more starts.
That's true, and you've got better players too. So it's a little bit different, but I don't know if you've heard, Colin, but I in the South Stands League,
undefeated
8-0, and I don't know if you've heard that.
You're the Kyle Shanahan of that league. That's impressive.
Yep. And what's really chaps my hide is all my league mates just won't honor me. They just won't. They won't recognize the grand accomplishment, and it's really kind of weighing on me. And I want them to kind of be good league mates and say a good word now and then about it. But
John, you've been on this earth long enough to understand jealousy. I know many people have envied you for a long time. You should be used to it by now. It's just the norm. It's just the norm. But over in our league, where it's not a concern of ours because we don't have to face you, all of us are watching with great admiration and respect.
Thank you. It's about time someone said some kind words. So anyway, it's good. It's good time. Thank God for fantasy football, because otherwise I don't think I'd pay attention to the Broncos for sure. I don't have any Broncos, but whoever's playing against them, I got Nick Chubb going this week, so I'm happy about that. But anyway,
got a big old Chubb for Chubb.
I do. Yeah, I got Chubbs for you. So I don't know. So we're about a half hour doing this. We don't have to go too long because I don't want the file to be too big if we're going to make a.
Yeah, I'd say shooting for 35 minutes is probably about right.
So what else did you have on the agenda? Let's put it that way.
I wanted to ask you about trick or treating on a golf cart. How was that experience? That kind of looked like fun. And whose golf cart was it?
So that's my pal Jake, who lives up the way from me, and he has a golf cart, and he takes it to the pool and stuff mostly, but he had it out last night, and I was like, there's snow all over the streets, but he had it all rigged up with lights, and he had a sound system going, and it was awesome. It was great. He tooled around that thing for a little while, just sit down, kids are trick-or-treating, have a couple beers. It was great.
Now,
Playing
do
some.
you in your neighborhood? Do you have the vans full of interlopers show
Not
up?
not exactly. And we went over to their neighborhood. So this was kind of just west of us. So we haven't really done our neighborhood in a while, but we don't get too many people around my house. But over there, yeah, it's not the same. I just remember like droves and droves of kids when I was a kid, and you just don't get that. There's just not that many here. I think we're just living in the wrong spot. I think out in the suburbs.
People aren't having as many kids.
Yeah,
Our generation has fewer kids than our parents did. Our kids' generation will have fewer kids. That's why we need immigrants. That's why we need the Islams.
That's true. That's true.
They have lots of kids.
I'm glad you're coming around to that. But yeah, that was fun. But yeah, that was nice. We did that. That was the second year we've done that. And there's this little neighborhood kind of over that way, and they like it. It was like right where our friend Aaron X used to live, kind of over there. And they built this like cul-de-sac. There was one house there, and they built this cul-de-sac with a bunch of really nice, fancy, modern houses. And we went there last year, and they had all the good candy. And so everyone was excited to go back this year, and it wasn't quite as good. So at least the one guy wasn't watching porn. We could see through his window last time. He wasn't doing that this year. We were kind of like, get away from the window there, kids. So,
zip your pants up and go help a trick or treater.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So
but we always get these random like Ford Aerostars from 1989 with the Space Saver spare and 9 kids packed in the back of them that will pull up at the end of the block, let the kids go down the block, and then the van slowly goes down, picks them up, goes to another block. I mean, I think these people are hoarding candy for the year.
Yeah, like
it's a very efficient operation.
I mean, like they don't have a place closer to them that's giving out candy. I just don't get that. Are they gonna have to do they hit it all night long?
I think they hit neighborhoods where they think they're going to get a lot of good candy. That's what I think. I think it's targeted, and I think a lot of it's going to be eaten by mom and dad. I really.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. So, it's good stuff. So real quick, how do you feel about your Nuggets?
Oh, I'm concerned. I mean, long term, I believe
I think after the first game, they were down. Like they got down real quick, and I think you had already tweeted that you wanted Mike Malone gone, which I thought was hilarious. But
no, actually, I'm happy with Mike Malone. Jokic, I'm a little bit concerned about his attitude. He's kind of schleppy, and his body language is bad. And it's not encouraging. Wasn't encouraging. The New Orleans just slapped the crap out of them. They didn't look good against Dallas either, but it's a long season. It's an 82 game season. So it's way too early to judge anything, but based on their schedule, they really should be 5-0 right now. So last couple games haven't looked good. We'll see how things go from here. But if Jokic is tired, out of shape, weak, angry, depressed, whatever he's got going on, that's not an encouraging sign. What we saw from Michael Porter Jr. last night, though, was a very encouraging sign. He led the team in scoring. That's pretty sweet.
That's all you can ask for, considering he hadn't played, right? That's what
he hadn't played up until that point. So Will Barton sat out. He came off the bench, and he was great, and he's silky smooth. And I think the more he plays, the better he'll be. And I honestly believe, I really truly believe, he's a superstar in the making.
That's awesome. That's all you can hope for. So if we got the basketball team and the hockey team are champions in the making. If only we can watch them soon. That's the main thing.
Let's go Comcast.
Let's go Comcast. Get it together, because I keep threatening. I'm gonna call them and I'm gonna be like, hey, look, I spent a lot of money with you, and you're gonna need to get this together, or you're gonna start to you give me my paltry $8 back. I don't know what it is, something like that.
They will give you the $8 back, by the way.
Yeah, but I don't need that. So I need more than that, is what I'm saying. So well, this is good. I enjoyed this. This is nice. We can do this often if we can't get together. Scott texted me last night, and he had a ticket to Wien for me, and he wanted me to go. And I was like, oh, I'm already booked up with the trick or treating scene. But he's probably over there at Wien. I think he's seeing several nights of Wien. I don't know if
3 nights in a row.
3 nights in a row. Yeah, so he's doing that. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully we can maybe get with him, and we can get a studio show in. But this works for now, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a good patch.
Yeah, that's a good patch. Yeah. So any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just good that I got to pee.
That's good. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And
Love you, Denver.
this was the South Stand Supplemental to your usual viewing. And we'll try to get back on that real soon. But until next time, adios.